Hello everyone, this is Lexicon Architect, and for today's deck tech, we're going to be looking at Commissar Severina Rain, a 3-mana Orzhov human soldier that says whenever it attacks, each opponent loses X life, where X is the number of other attacking creatures, and then for 2 mana, we can sacrifice another creature to gain 2 life and draw a card. So the general strategy of this deck is to make a ton of tokens, attack with them, and then we have a multitude of aristocrat creatures that are going to allow us to drain our opponent and gain life along the way. So looking at mana value 1, I want to talk about Launch of the Fleet. So it's a 1 mana spell that this spell costs 1 more to cast for each target beyond the first, and until the end of the turn, any number of target creatures gain whenever this creature attacks. Create a 1/1 white soldier creature token that's tapped and attacking. So this is going to help trigger our commander and help us get more ping damage through on our opponents. And then we have Skull Clamp to allow us to equip to our tokens that we're generating to help draw us cards along the way. At mana value 2, we have Bitter Blossom. At the beginning of our upkeep, we lose a life. We create a 1/1 Fairy Rogue creature token with flying. So this is good because it's going to keep allowing us to generate tokens, which in turn can either attack or be sacrificed by our commander to help us gain 2 life and draw a card. Then we have several aristocrat creatures in Blood Artist, Corpse Knight, Cruel Celebrant, Elas, and Zulaport Cutthroat. Then we have cards like Finale of Glory and Grand Crescendo to help generate tokens for us. Latho allows us to create a treasure token whenever a player casts their second spell each turn. We lose a life and then we create a treasure. And the cool thing about it is that it says whenever a player does this, so it does count for ourselves as well. Then we have McCready, Lamplight Mayor. Whenever a creature you control with power 2 or less attacks, it gains Scope. So basically, if we attack in with creatures with power 2 or less, they cannot be blocked except by creatures with greater power. And then whenever a creature with power 4 or greater attacks you, its controller loses 2 life and we gain 2 life. Then the last card I want to talk about is Throne of the God Pharaoh, a 2 mana artifact that says at the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses life equal to the number of tapped creatures you control. Then at mana value 3, we have Adeline to help generate us tokens when we attack. Color the Copper Coats to create even more tokens. Delny to make it so that creatures with power 2 or less cannot be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater. And it's also going to allow us to trigger an ability a second time on a creature with power 2 or less. So if we do have several aristocrat creatures on board, and if they're not above 2 power, they're going to trigger an additional time. Then we have Phyrexian Arena to help us draw an additional card during our upkeep by losing 1 life. And then lastly, Unbreaking Formation to protect our creatures from a board wipe. And if we do cast a spell during our main phase, put a 1/1 counter on all of your creatures, and they gain Vigilance until the end of the turn. Then at mana value 4, we have Bloodletter of Akhlysats, which is going to allow us to get more damage through on our opponents whenever we deal damage to them. So we're going to do twice that much damage instead. Clever Concealment helps protect our board state. Mondrak allows us to create more tokens. Miro is in here mostly to make it so that during our turn, opponents cannot cast spells or activate abilities of artifact, creatures, or enchantment. And then when it attacks, you create X 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature tokens, where X is the number of soldiers you control. Then we have Smothering Tithe to help us create treasures if they do not want to pay the 2. And then lastly, we have Tesla Karlov that says if a creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time, and creature tokens you control have Vigilance and Lifelink. That at mana value 5, we have Rabble Rousing with Hideaway 5, so we get to look at the top 5 cards of our library and put 1 under this. Whenever you attack with 1 or more creatures, you create that many 1/1 green and white citizen creature tokens. Then if you control 10 or more creatures, you may play the exile card without paying its mana cost. Then we have Relevant Hoplite that allows us to create tokens based on our devotion to white. And then lastly, we have Virtue of Loyalty. For 2 mana, we can instant speed create a token, and then if we play it for its full cost, at the beginning of your end step, you put a 1/1 counter on each creature control, and then you untap those creatures. And then at mana value 7, we have Deployed to the front. You create X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens, where X is the number of creatures on the battlefield. So it's not only us, it counts for our opponents too. So it's pretty cool if we do get to play this for 7. We're going to generate a ton of tokens along the way. And then at mana value 8, we have Moonshaker Cavalry, just to wrap the game up if it does resolve. And then lastly, I put 1 board wipe in here and Vanquish the Horde. And this spell will cost 1 less to cast for a creature on the battlefield. And then you destroy all creatures. For utility lands, we have Botuka Bog to empty a graveyard, Castle Ardenvale to create tokens, Castle Lochwain to draw cards. Then we have Minister Rift to help us draw cards as well. We have Phyrexian Tower to sacrifice a creature and add 2 black mana to our mana pool. Restless Fortress that we can pay 4 mana to make it a 1/4 white and black nightmare creature token until the end of the turn. It's still a land. And then when it attacks, defending player loses 2 life and can gain 2 life. And let's see, do we have any other anymore? Yes, we have Takenuma, which we can either channel away for 4 or less, depending on how many legendary creature we control. So we get to mill 3 cards and then return a creature or planeswalker from your graveyard to your hand. And lastly, we have Windbrisk Heights. It does have Hideaway Force, similar to the other card I mentioned earlier. And then for 1 white mana, you can play the exile card without paying its mana cost if you attack with 3 or more creatures this turn. So that's the deck in a nutshell. If you like this style of content, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I hope you have a wonderful day.